Let's talk about nomenclature of binary compounds, the rules and how to apply them with a few examples. What are binary compounds? They're compounds with only two elements. We won't be talking about acids or bases. We'll be talking about salts and oxides in this very short little video. Examples. NaCl is sodium chloride, only sodium and chlorine. Calcium bromide, CaBr2, only two elements. Carbon monoxide, C and O, just two elements. Those are all binary compounds. This is ionic, this is molecular. Two ionic and one molecular. Even though calcium bromide has three atoms, since it only has two elements, we call it binary. Now, in another video, which I reference here, you can learn about the difference in properties of ionic and molecular compounds, how to look at their formulas in the periodic table to determine which is which. So if you don't know the difference between ionic and molecular, please discontinue this video and go to the one that's referenced here. But remember, for all binary compounds, whichever type, the less electronegative element comes first. That would be the metal if there is one, and then the nonmetal. And the second element's ending is changed to the three-letter suffix IDE. Let's talk about naming ionic binary compounds. You're going to name the metal first with no change in the name. For instance, sodium. Like all binary compounds, you will change the ending of the nonmetal element to IDE. So fluorine becomes fluoride, oxygen becomes oxide, sulfur becomes sulfide. For most transition elements, you're going to add a Roman numeral in parentheses after the name of the metal. For instance, Cui2 starts with copper 2 because iodine has a valence of -1. Since there's two of them, the copper has to have a valence of +2. The number in Roman numerals is the valence of that metal. And remember, in ionic compounds, there are no prefixes on either element. When you're naming covalent or molecular compounds, generally the less electronegative element comes first, and most of the time, the most electronegative comes second. So carbon is on the left of oxygen, so it comes first. Carbon monoxide in this case. Each element comes with a numeric prefix, hence the monoxide since there's one oxygen. Except for the first element where you never write mono. So I'm tempted to say monocarbon monoxide, but we don't do that. If there's just one of these first elements, then you don't say mono, you just say carbon, or for instance, in this case, this is sulfur dioxide, not monosulfur dioxide. Now it's time for you to practice. I'm giving you these six compounds. They're all binary. Indicate whether they're ionic or covalent molecular, here in this column, and then name them in this column. You should turn off the video and do this, and then come back to see the answers. Here are the answers. Carbon dioxide is molecular. Strontium chloride, again, is ionic, so you don't use any prefixes. The aluminum bromide is ionic, again, no prefixes. But N2O4, you're over there on the right side of the table with nitrogen and oxygen, so you have to do the prefixes because it's molecular. So you call this dinitrogen tetroxide. Down here, this is a metal, this is a nonmetal. It's mostly ionic, so we don't use prefixes. We call it gallium sulfide. And here we have a transition metal, manganese, with two iodines. Iodine is -1, so the manganese, having two iodines to take care of, must be +2. Since it's a metal and nonmetal, it's ionic, and therefore we call it manganese 2 iodide. No prefixes. This tells us that there's a +2 charge on the manganese, and therefore we would have 2 iodines that go with it.